We've got two great guests for you now. Robert Borosage is the president for the Institute for America's Future, and Trey Ellis is an associate professor at Columbia University, and he's also an author. And they've both written about the debt ceiling, and that's what I want to discuss. Welcome to both of you. Robert, let me start with you. You call your article the debt ceiling debacle. Why do you think it's a debacle?
Well, we've gone down this road in negotiating about something that we should have never negotiated about at all, which is Republicans decided to hold the economy hostage in order to get a range of concessions. And the president started out and should have sustained a position that simply said we need a clean limit of the debt ceiling, which every other president has gotten, and we're not going to be held hostage to this and let Wall Street enforce that reality on Republicans. And instead, we're down now to the Democratic position being $2.7 trillion in cuts out of discretionary spending over the next 10 years, with no bite taken out of the wealthiest people or the corporations to help pay their fair share.
Robert, I'm not seeing that wrong, right? That's 100% to 0% total and utter failure, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure again that I wasn't mistaken. Trey, you wrote debt ceiling is health care all over again. Why is that? Why do you think that's the case?
Well, as a citizen, I feel it's the case because you're rooting for your government to work. And watching, you begin with health care and you get excited about it, and then you start settling for less and less and less. And then at the end, it's like a snowball that's just melted into nothing. And in the same way, what began as some kind of discussion perhaps about really changing government, though we should be talking about unemployment, but if even going down this road, which is a mistake, and you say, okay, I can settle for this crumb, then you can't even have the crumb. And then you say, well, maybe I'll settle for a crumb of the crumb, and they can't even have that. And then at the end, it looks like it's a 100% victory for the Tea Party, which is a very small group of people that have run the table yet again. You
know, Paul Krugman today wrote about exactly the same thing you're talking about, Trey, about the healthcare situation. He's like, look, in the end, we settled for what was originally a Republican plan, mandate and all, and we called it mission accomplished. And he didn't use those words, I do, but at least there we got something passed. I mean, this is 100 to nothing, and the Republicans won't even take it yet. So I got to ask both of you guys. I guess, Robert, let me start with you. What's going on here? Can a party be this incompetent, or is there something else at play here?
Well, I think you have a president who decided that his political interest was in being the great compromiser and presenting himself as the reasonable man in the room, except he was negotiating with lunatics. And so they kept demanding more and more concessions and raising the bar higher and higher, and he kept meeting them and meeting them and meeting them till we've gotten to this absurd position.
Yeah, you know, Trey, I wonder if it's that. You know, of course, what Robert's saying is certainly right, but I don't even think that's a lunatic position. I think that's a logical position that if you're negotiating with a guy whose only point is to compromise, well, that you should constantly ask for more because he doesn't have a principle he's going to lay down. His principle is compromise. Aren't the Republicans doing what is logical in asking for more because they know Obama will give it to them, that's his principle?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a problem. Everyone's talked about how, you know, I guess Henry Waxman in closed session said, don't cave again on this, and the president got upset and said, I'm the president, I'm a great negotiator. He has proven to be a terrible, terrible poker player in the sense that he pre-negotiates everything to the center and then goes from there. And they play the political theater of digging in their heels. And he says he plays the compromiser, saying everything's on the table. So they put craziness on the table. And then if you put, you know, they say, well, why don't we just light everything on fire? We tell them, well, we can't do that. Then they can compromise, in quotes, back to a position even to the right could have dreamed of getting. So what's most depressing is playing into their hand, which they played a minority hand just brilliantly. And I wish the Democrats who've been in the minority for so long had ever learned, you know, would have played this well. But what's weird is that this goes on over and over and again in every single issue. And the White House stubbornly doesn't seem to want to learn their lesson.
Well, that's interesting because you pointed out something that almost everybody in Washington has forgotten, which is that the Republicans are in the minority. The Democrats have the White House and the Senate, and they certainly don't act like it. They're just talking about, okay, oh, pretty please, party that's in the minority, can we have a small little crumb? And as we've discussed here, and as the facts absolutely indicate, the Republicans say no, and then the Democrats go, okay, sorry for asking. So, when you think about that point, Robert, that Trey is making, aren't progressives, if they say, hey, we will just blindly support the president, or we will support the Democrats because we're on Team Democrat, they're not doing the Democrats any favors, are they?
No, I think that's right. And I think progressives have started to realize that. I think there's been a major mobilization once the president put Medicare and Social Security on the table. People were stunned in the Congress and out. And there's been a significant mobilization to say to Democrats, you go down this road, you're not going to have our support. And that was, even the AFL-CIO and Move On and others saying, we're not going to accept this. And I think that has helped not to change the president's strategy, but to change Democratic views, at least a little bit, in the Congress. The one thing
let me tell you something, though, Robert. I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off there for one quick second, because I think we're going to lose on that. I would be shocked if we didn't lose. Every single story that I see is, even if they just pass a debt ceiling here without touching entitlements, they're obsessed. They're going to come back to it. In both the Democrat and Republican plans, there is a super committee, and the super committee will be split evenly between Democrats and Republicans, meaning they only need one Mark Warner, one Joe Lieberman to side with the Republicans, which they'll get in spades, to turn around and cut entitlements anyway. President Obama has said right from the get-go that he wants to cut entitlements. They're going to cut entitlements.
Yeah, I think it's quite likely that comes out of this process, but the blowback on that is going to be enormous, and it's going to keep building from now until this super Congress committee reports, and I think you're going to see a firestorm in reaction to it.
I wonder. I hope to God that that's what happens, because I don't want the American people being robbed. They paid into Social Security, they paid into Medicare, and it doesn't have to be cut at all. It's beyond outrageous. But Trey, what's your sense of that? Do you think there's going to be this blowback, or are we going to do like we always do, because a lot of Democrats go, oh no, you should never question a Democratic president. Obviously, you should just, even if he cuts Social Security, go along.
Well, it is tricky. We don't want to play into the hands of the Republicans in the sense of splintering ourselves, because we're very good at that historically. But it's also true that we need to stand up and be counted. But I think all three of us here are making the mistake of talking about, and certainly on television people talk about, the Tea Party versus progressives and Obama's base versus these Tea Party people, when we're really talking about everybody else except for the Tea Party in terms of caring about unemployment and not caring about this deficit. Not understanding that that's not true, but understanding the deficit is a long-term, which I wrote about today, and that the unemployment is the immediate, clear, and present danger. That is not a progressive issue. That is an American issue, and we as progressives need to understand that we're not talking in a vacuum anymore, and we're not saying we're trying to be painted, especially by the Obama administration, as sort of vegan, Ben and Jerry's ice cream eating weirdos, as opposed to smart people, politicians in our own sense, with political savvy and a finger on the pulse of what America wants. And what America wants right now are jobs.
No, Trey.
What we want in a leader is strength.
I couldn't agree more with you. Obviously, I agree 100% with you on the strength, on the leadership, on the focus on the jobs. But look, Larry Summers even said, we just did it in the last segment, saying that, look, the unemployed don't have lobbyists, basically. And since they don't make political contributions, that's why nobody in Washington is talking about them. And that goes to a larger point, too. Look, is this a matter of the Democrats and the Republicans basically doing the same thing because they get paid by the same people?
It's partly that. I mean, it's certainly that the financial interests are so entrenched in a way in the last 15, 20 years in the political process in a way that they hadn't been so blatantly since, let's say before the crisis. But the bigger issue, I think, is looking at the regular Americans who are not unemployed but have friends who are unemployed, who have relatives that are unemployed, that are not buying anything, that are scared about this country and the direction the country is going in. That's not a Republican or Democratic or independent issue. That's an American issue that we're all frightened for where this country's headed.
I know, and that's where we're all losing, unfortunately.
They're like kamikazes. The Tea Party people are like these kamikazes, and they've jumped into the driver's seat, and they're driving us into doom. And I think most all-Americans, the vast majority, the 95% of us that are not Tea Party members, are horrified.
The only thing I would slightly disagree with
them is the president.
The only thing I would slightly disagree with is I think it's Wall Street that's driving us that crazy train, not the Tea Party guys. They're the ones who want to cut entitlements. In fact, they're mad at the Tea Party that they're blocking the so-called grand bargain, which allows them to cut entitlements and cut taxes on corporations and the higher incomes. Bob, last word on this. Go ahead.
Well, I think that's right. I think money politics plays a big role here. The other thing is that people shouldn't forget is the president's people, his political advisors, think he's winning this debate. So they're happy with where the debate is in the sense that he looks like the reasonable man. He is the compromiser. He's made Republicans look like they're intransigent and demanding too much. And so even with all these concessions, which to my mind, particularly on Medicare and Social Security, are ruinous, they feel like he's gaining politically in this process. And so that's one of the things that makes it hard, is if he thinks he's playing a winning hand here, when most of the rest of us see he's giving away the store, we have a very different set of interests.
Yeah, and that's a good note to end on, because, look, I think the policy is disastrous. We have all agreed to that. But I think the politics is also disastrous. I think Trey is right. Jobs is number one. They're not only not focusing on jobs, they're hurting jobs by cutting spending. And then when they come towards the election, I don't think he'll be perceived as strong, which is what they look for in political leaders. Exactly what Trey said earlier. I think they're playing a losing hand, and they have no idea. But this has been a great conversation. It's great to have Robert Borosage and Trey Ellis on with us. Really appreciate it, guys.
Be a cheer.
Thanks, Cenk. It was great.